The work of Chaucer has been divided into three periods for the convenience of studying: the French period, the Italian period, and the English period. While an esquire to Edward III, he first began to write, and A Prayer to the Virgin is declared by many to be his first extant poem. He read the famous Roman de la Rose and was profoundly impressed by it. Of this voluminous poem, he made a translation, probably at a later date. Romande of the Rose. This is a translation in octosyllabic couplets of the former poem. As this French poem is the most famous allegorical romance of the Middle Ages and references to it are so common in English literature, the conventional machinery is that of a dream in which the narrator sees a beautiful garden beside a riverbank. And the whole atmosphere of the poem is redolent of perfume, luxury, laughing and dancing, completely of courtly life, of love and leisure. And this was in universal fashion at that time. This kind of a poem was in universal fashion at that time. An allegorical romance. The work fascinated Chaucer, and he is never tired of mentioning it in his other works. It was in a way this poem that initiated him into poetry and nursed his genius by helping to form his style in versification. He followed the stock formula of the dream allegory for many years, only now and then expressing his native genius for humorous description. The first allegorical poem is the Book of the Duchess, an elegy written on the death in 1369 of Blanche, Duchess of Lancaster, wife of John of Gaunt. It is in octosyllabic couplets and expresses the husband's grief and sings the praises of the Duchess. The second of the allegorical poems is The Parliament of Fowls. Nature has called a grand parliament of birds to celebrate Saint Valentine's Day by choosing their mates. The birds make speeches in the courtly love fashion, some defending constancy, others advocating free love. Though the form and material are conventional, the debate is made lively by the poet's deft touches of drama and humor. The poem is in the 7-line stanza, also called Rhyme Royale, from its use by King James I in his King's Choir. The line is decasyllabic and the rhyme scheme A B A B B C C. Flee from the Press is his popular ballad, and it praises life of quiet discontentment. Flee from the Press is his popular ballad, which praises life of quiet contentment, which is distant from the crazy or insane crowd. And he was not quite at home in lyrical expression, and that his special gift lay in narration. His genius was in it. The Italian period. After his visit to Italy in 1372, Chaucer produced poems which bear unmistakable evidence of Italian influence, that of Dante, Petrarch, and Boccaccio. Dante, of course, had been dead for over 50 years, but Chaucer must have read the Divine Comedy, most probably immediately before writing The House of Fame. It is of the dream allegory variety in octosyllables, and in the present instance a curious mixture of scientific learning, satire, humor, and shrewd criticism of life. The story of Griselda in Canterbury Tales were inspired from Petrarch's Latin work, then The Knight's Tale, that too from the Canterbury Tales, were inspired from Petrarch's Latin work, then the knight's tale, that too from the Canterbury Tales, were inspired from Petrarch's Latin work, then the knight's tale, that too from the Canterbury Tales, were inspired from Petrarch's Latin work, then the knight's tale, that too from the Canterbury Tales, inspired from Tazidi. Actually, it was an abridgment of Boccaccio's Tazidi. Then, Troilus and Cressida was the enlargement of Boccaccio's Il Filastrato. Il Filastrato means love stricken, and it used rhyme royal, and it was the longest single poem of Chaucer's, though it was incomplete. And Legend of Good Women was his reparation of past errors of attack on women in works like Romaunt of the Rose and Troilus and Cressida. He upbraids the stigma cast on women. The poem is unfinished, maybe because he found it monotonous or boring. And for students of literature, this is Chaucer's first attempt in heroic couplet. The record idondu local. The English period, dating from 1384 to 1390. Largely, as his work had been affected by Italian subjects, he had never, save them with one trifling exception, attempted to copy Italian verses. Boccaccio's octave stanzas did not attract him. He had a stanza ready to hand, which he deemed fully as good. Some of the Canterbury Tales had been written during the earlier period, but those most characteristically English were written at this time, those of the miller, the reeve, the cook, the wife of Bath, the merchant, the friar, the nun-priest, and the partner. The prologue is supposed to have been written in 1388. He ushered in the era of modern literature and established himself as the greatest European poet of his time, leaving far behind the contemporary poetry of France and Italy on which he had been nourished. Two of these, the House of Fame and the Legend of Good Women, he left unfinished, the former one presumably because he found it too artificial for his taste, and the latter because he found it monotonous. Then suddenly his native genius suppressed so long broke forth from its bondage and found full and unhampered expression in the Canterbury Tales. The prologue for Canterbury Tales, it was, like I mentioned, have been written in 1388, and that's a very important point. So that's it.